The Gift of the Current, A Tale of Ancient Egypt, by Alex Wynne Ashwood. The Nile was still, mist clung to the water like a soft veil, and Elephantine Island lay half in shadow, half in the first blush of the sun. Nari, a young boat pilot with calloused hands and quick eyes, walked barefoot along the mooring stones. This was her world: boats, reeds, the smell of wet wood and silt. She knew every curve of the current, every hidden sandbar. But this morning was different. The air felt heavier, charged. From the southern horizon, a slow, low rumble echoed like distant thunder. The Nile, which should have been calm at this hour, shimmered and pulsed as if holding its breath. Nari paused, with one hand on the prow of her skiff, listening. Something was moving against the natural rhythm of the river. By mid-morning, the villagers gathered near the docks. The river had begun to rise too early, weeks before the expected flood. Boats rocked against their moorings. Baskets and jars tumbled into the water. Nari helped tie down ropes and shouted warnings to children running too close to the edge. Her heart pounded not from fear, but from the strange pull of the river, as if it were calling. Then it came, a sudden surge, a wall of water that slapped against the shore. Men stumbled backward, ropes snapped, and in the foam, something white flashed like a sliver of moonlight. A feather, long, pure, untouched by the churning water, floated upstream against the current. It shouldn't have been possible, but there it was. When the feather drifted past the docks, Nari followed. Her boat slipped into the water silently, the paddle barely breaking the surface. Around her, the Nile narrowed and darkened, the wind shifting as if guided by an unseen hand. She knew this stretch of the river better than anyone, but today the currents were wrong, too strong, moving in patterns she couldn't predict. The feather glided just ahead, always out of reach, spinning slowly in the eddies, but never sinking. It was leading her south, toward the cataracts, toward the sacred waters of Anuket. At the First Cataract, the sound of water crashing over rocks drowned out every other sound. Nari guided the boat carefully, pulling against the current with every stroke. She should have turned back. No boat was meant to pass here alone. Then she saw it. Figures on the rocky shore. Priests from the temple, their white linen soaked at the edges, shouting for her to stop. "The river rises too soon," one cried. "It's not safe." But the feather circled once in the air, as if caught by a breeze that came from nowhere, and drifted further upstream. Nari gritted her teeth. "Then I'll find out why," she whispered, and pushed forward. As she crossed the second cataract, the world seemed to shift. The cliffs rose higher, blocking out the sun, and the air filled with the scent of wet stone. Her small skiff groaned under the pull of the current, but the water seemed to hold her boat up rather than drag it down. The feather finally touched the surface near a ring of half-submerged stones, the ruins of an old shrine. The water there glowed faintly, as if reflecting light that came from beneath. Nari felt the paddle vibrate in her hand. She had the distinct, unshakable sense that someone was watching. The boat stopped moving on its own, anchored by nothing but stillness. The feather hovered above the glowing water, then slowly sank beneath the surface. The air turned warm, impossibly warm. Then came the voice. Not a sound, not exactly, but a presence, felt in her chest and bones. It was the voice of the current itself, flowing through her like water through reeds. She closed her eyes, and the world around her disappeared. "You are not lost," it whispered. "You are chosen." The river roared to life. A surge of water rushed toward the docks far below, threatening to swallow boats and homes alike. Nari's skiff spun wildly, but instead of fear, she felt an impossible clarity. She grabbed the paddle, braced herself, and began to guide the current, not fight it. Light, soft blue-gold light, rose from beneath the surface. It curled around her arms like living water, guiding her strokes, lifting the boat over the rapids with impossible grace. For a heartbeat, she was no longer just Nari, the boat pilot. She was part of the Nile itself. Back at Elephantine, the flood that had threatened the village slowed, then reversed, draining into calmer channels. People stared from the docks in stunned silence as Nari's boat glided toward shore on perfectly still water. She stepped out, barefoot, dripping, carrying the white feather in her hand. The priests knelt first, then the others followed. No one spoke. The river had roared like a god, and then listened to a single mortal girl. That night, Nari sat alone by the water. The moon hung low over the Nile, turning the river silver. Crickets whispered in the reeds. She held the feather in her palm, turning it over and over, trying to remember the exact shape of the voice she had felt beneath the water. But it wasn't something that could be remembered, only carried. Behind her, the temple bells rang softly. Anuket had answered, or perhaps she had always been there, waiting for someone to listen. She dreamed of the river. She dreamed of a goddess with a tall feathered crown, her skin the color of sunlight on bronze, her hair braided with turquoise beads. Anuket stood on the water's surface, as if on stone, and the river flowed toward her like obedient wind. Nari knelt before her without fear. The goddess touched the mortal's forehead with one cool finger, and the sound of the current filled the night